Merry Christmas, everybody. Just want to do a little quick intro because we've got a great recording coming up here with
Amber Richardson.
Yes.
And Jenni Berman, physician assistant. That's me.
Are you talking about yourself in the third person?
I always do on this podcast. I always introduce myself as the third person. So yes, just jumping on and say Merry Christmas, everybody. It is officially Christmas week and we're so excited. I know we're excited in our house as we've talked about before, but wishing you guys all the very best Merry Christmas that you can have.
Oh, I love it. So enjoy this recording and we will be back next week.
But first and foremost, with the Berman Method podcast, if this is your first time with us, we are all about treating problems and not symptoms, really trying to get away from the corporate medicine and actually figuring out what is going on the inside. Where are these problems coming from and how can we help others to improve their symptoms and their actual problems without handing them more and more prescription medications, without having to have unnecessary surgeries. So we are all about treating problems and not symptoms. But today I am here with a phenomenal guest speaker. I'm so excited to have her on and hope you guys are equally as excited. We are going to have a lot of information for you posted in our show notes, so make sure you pay attention to that. And this is a 2-episode podcast. So if you are loving today, we are going to be back for round 2 next week. So make sure you tune back in for that as well. Today I have Amberlynn Richardson. She is a grateful wife, mother, author, life coach, and speaker. After a fulfilling career as an educator and public servant, she transitioned to her dream role, that of a full-time mother and entrepreneur. Amber is passionate about helping others find peace and purpose through intentional living. She lives with her husband and 3 children, loves hiking, writing, and deep conversations with the people she loves. And I am just so excited to have her on the Berman Method podcast because we align in so many different areas on helping all individuals, but specifically women through just really stressful time periods and really helping to connect with themselves. As mothers, and Amber, you can speak on this, we often just give, focus on everybody else, and we really struggle with the important part of taking care of ourselves so that we can give back to others. So Amber, thank you for joining us.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me. I'm so grateful and honored to be here with you and all of your guests. So yeah.
We are so excited. So tell us a little bit about you before we jump into why we have you on the podcast and how you are so interrelated to what I do on a daily basis and how helping our all the help that we give to our listeners. Tell us just a little bit about yourself so we know who you are.
Sure. So my name's Amber, and I was born and raised on Marco Island, Florida, so Southwest Florida, and went to college at Rollins College, and I studied psychology, I studied Spanish, was kind of trying to figure out where I wanted to go in life and what I wanted to do. I had this idea, this dream that I wanted to become a life coach and a speaker and a teacher, but at 20-nothing, I didn't know what I had to offer and had to go out and live some life. So I lived and worked in DC for a little bit, moved back to Naples, Florida, where I met my husband, and I ended up getting into education. And so started off as a teacher, and then I helped to open a charter high school in my hometown, and then kind of stumbled into a leadership role there. So I was assistant principal, and life was kind of going as it was. And then motherhood came into the play. And after having my first son, I kind of got into a rhythm of like the working mom life thing. And then I had our second child, and our second child, our daughter, Reese, she has Down syndrome, and we received a prenatal diagnosis for her, along with a congenital heart defect. So that kind of added a layer of just life that we needed to kind of figure out alongside of that. And so long story short, the year that she was born was a big year with some big milestones, including her birth and navigating all the appointments medically and therapeutically for her. And then at 5 months old, she had open heart surgery. And then a few months after that, my mother, who was helping to primarily take care of her when I was at work, she unexpectedly passed away. Mm-hmm. And it was kind of like those three life events that kind of led to this really big shift in my focus on my own personal health, my own personal journey, which has kind of led me to this point now. So that was kind of the turning point.
Right, right. Such an amazing story too. The fact that you've been able to utilize that and embrace the different situations that happen to turn it to something better and turn it into this new passion that you have for yourself, when really that could have taken anybody out of the race and just threw their hands up and said, I don't know why this is happening. But you really embraced it and said, I'm going to turn this into something that is going to help others get through these very challenging situations that you've been in. And I will say that Reese is doing amazing at this point. She's 6 now.
Yeah, 7. She just
7 now. 7.
Mm-hmm.
And she's doing amazing. And you do have one more son after her, who and the kids are just great. So
yes, yeah, no, and thank you for that. And I think I'm grateful that I was able to kind of be grounded enough in my faith and kind of some perspective in what I wanted, and that I was able to have that mindset and be able to approach it in that way. And I'm grateful and hopeful that this current journey that I'm on is able to support other women who find themselves navigating their own hard season. So
absolutely. And that's what led us to today is Amber has officially launched her first book, which is now out. It is available, and we're going to post the links for that. It is on Amazon for everybody to buy. But this book is called Seasonal Sinking, and we are going to... Sinking, yep. Okay. I was like, wait a second, that didn't flow right. Seasonal sinking. So we are going to dive deep into the seasonal sinking book and just learn more from Amber regarding the more psychological component of what we're speaking on in this book. And I have the book myself. I've read it, and certainly something that I am working on as an individual. I'm taking all the quizzes that you're sending that come with the book, just to really improve myself as a mother of 3, also a business owner. My husband owns a business, as you guys all know. Obviously, you're listening to the Berman Method podcast, but I am one of those that will put like myself and sleep on the back burner. The exercise, I will keep up with that. That's my mental capacity. But it's like sleep. I preach on sleep all day, but who needs sleep when you're in this situation? So I'm diving deep into it too. So tell us, Amber, what inspired the creation of Seasonal Sinking Framework? Tell me a little bit more about it.
Yeah. So the book itself is basically an introduction to this framework that I created and how to integrate that into our lives. And it all kind of started was, so as I mentioned, I had my daughter, and then I had that kind of crazy year. And then my mother's death was kind of like that point of change that just kind of shifted everything for me. And so from that point, I had made the decision, and I talk about this more in the book, about how in conversations with my husband, we decided that I was going to step away from my position as an assistant principal so that I could focus on our family, Reese. And so I had transitioned out of that. And so fast forward, I'm 7 months pregnant with my 3rd child. I'm about a year out of or removed from my position as assistant principal. And the world is finally starting to open up from the pandemic. And I have just been carrying this huge amount of guilt about not actually contributing financially to our family's income. And so I knew that I was, obviously saving costs by watching, caring for our children and, that sort of thing. But at the time, it felt like it wasn't enough. And I just felt this pressure to get things going. And kind of considering all the circumstances, I was like, oh my gosh, this might be the time that I can actually pursue this lifelong dream I've had to be a life coach. I now have some life experience, and I feel like I have some ways that I can connect with people. And so this opportunity to participate in this mastermind came up, and I was like all in. I've always been a go-getter. So I have a goal. I may not be the most gifted or talented, but I will be the hardest worker out there. So a ton of grit, ton of commitment. And I was like, I got this. So I joined this mastermind thinking like, I'm going to kickstart this business with a newborn and 2 other kids and all the things. And fast forward to 6 months into it. And we're on our last coaching call for this group, and I'm completely deflated. I'm in a group with all of these women who are sharing these business metrics about their growth and things that they had done in this 6-month time period. And I was sitting there like, what do I have to share? I had at most worked with pro bono clients. I really didn't have any kind of tangible growth or any kind of data to kind of show like, this is what I've done or accomplished, nothing tangible. And as I'm sitting there listening to all these other women, I was like, oh my gosh, like, the reason that I don't have the success that I imagined I was going to have is because I've been resisting my reality this entire time. And as soon as I kind of dropped into that, and I had been like kind of thinking about this idea of seasons, it was like, I'm essentially asking myself to bloom flowers in the middle of winter. And it like I had finally kind of reached a point where my personal capacity where I was no longer able to just kind of force myself through something through sheer grit, determination, and willpower. It was like what I had was just coming from a depleted place. And it was like as soon as I accepted that, it was like I was washed over with this wave of like calm. And I was like, everything all of a sudden kind of made sense. And I was like, if that's my experience, this has got to be, I know that this has to be similar for other women. And so then I just kind of went down this rabbit hole of like this metaphor of if our life is in seasons and we look at them in comparison to the natural seasons around us, what could that mean? And then that's led now to this huge project and journey of this book. So
absolutely. And we're going to talk a little bit more about the different areas of the book and the phases that you describe in the book, and how it's not just about careers, for instance, which is, that was really your aha moment, but it really goes back into a lot of different areas of stress control and cortisol control, which I talk so much about on this podcast and with my clients on a daily basis. And it's not just about your diet. It's not just about your career and your ability to grow in your career as a mother, and I say stay-at-home mom, and some people are like, that's not like, that's a job. And I 1000% agree it's a job. Even, now that we have some help at home, I look at my nanny sometimes and I'm like, you're a saint. Like sometimes my work is really stressful, but it's a different type, it's just different. So I'm really excited to get into it. So tell me a little bit. In the book, you actually describe the seasons as metaphors for phases of a woman's life. So in kind of what we just talked about, like physically, emotionally, in our roles as mothers or not mothers, some of us don't have children, in our careers and our diet. And, we all are successful in an area. We all struggle in an area.
Yeah. So as I kind of dove into this, I was like, okay, so if I'm in a season, what season am I in? And it went into this whole thing. So the idea is that like, just because it's autumn right now does not necessarily mean I'm in a fall season of life. So the idea is like, we look at our life circumstances and then how does that match what season that we're in. So fall in my book, in my framework, is the season of transformation. And the critical practices for fall are reflection, release, and gratitude. So this idea is that if you can identify your season of life, then here's these 3 critical practices that are going to be probably most nourishing and supportive to you in that season. And then next we have winter, which is the season of sanctuary. And then that season has the critical practices of intimacy, rest, and security. And then next you kind of naturally flow into a spring, which is the season of hope with the critical practices of emergence, growth, and bloom. And then lastly, we go into summer, which is the season of joy with the critical practices of play, adventure, and celebration. So again, it's kind of like this idea that we naturally cycle through these seasons in our lives, much as we see in the world around us. And as we see in the world around us, there might be certain areas that like it leans more towards a spring or a summer, or it might lean more towards a winter and a fall. But we all experience these changes, and there's value and beauty in every single one of these seasons. But what I'm finding, the more that I talk to women and the more that I've kind of done this work, is that we get stuck in a season that we think we're supposed to be in, because the other season maybe doesn't hold as much value, or we don't know how to access it culturally or societally. And so we just kind of like push it to the back burner, and we're missing out on all that's available to us there that then would make us even better in the next season. And so that's kind of the idea behind it.
Right. And sometimes we hold off on, acknowledging that we're shifting into a different phase because of those around us, or what should have been, or where should I be, or where does society expect me to be at, rather than just understanding what's occurring, because life happens, right? Yeah. There's these situations that come up where it's time for us to adjust and to kind of move into that next season. But I love thinking about it like that, as the different areas, the different seasons. And you're absolutely right. Like, we tend to always follow that pattern, right? Like, you're not, oh shit, what is happening? I'm falling type, feeling. But then it always, as we push through and just embrace it and find different ways to navigate it, then we move into what you described as the spring forward, and then at the end, the celebration. So I think it's amazing to think about that. Tell me a little bit more about responding to certain traumas. I think you talk about it like a rip current almost.
Yeah. So when I think about like why are we kind of in this spot? Like why do we struggle to kind of move into these seasons more naturally? And I think so much of that, and at least that was my experience as I kind of shared to you with my story, is there's a resistance to reality. And so, growing up in Florida, as like you learn to swim either before or in alongside when you learn to walk. Like being around the water is incredibly important, and learning safety around the water. And so at a young age, you kind of learn that if you're out in the water and you get caught in a rip current, and for anybody who might be listening who doesn't know what a rip current is, so it's when the water will literally, the force of the current will pull you from shore out into the depths of the Gulf or the ocean. And our instinctive natural reaction or response usually to that kind of experience would be to swim to shore, right? To swim against the current. And tragically and unfortunately, that often leads to exhaustion and drowning in many cases. So what we're taught is that if you find yourself that you were caught in a rip current, is to stay calm, to allow the water, the current, to pull you until you can position yourself to swim perpendicular to the current out of it. And that's how you get out of a rip current. So like in thinking about this experience with how we engage with life circumstances, so often there are these experiences that happen in life and circumstances that feel like a rip current. We don't want it. It's taking us away. It's unexpected. And our initial reaction is to resist it. And so we exhaust our time, our energy, our emotional capacity, and we just kind of deplete ourselves in the process of resisting. And so the idea of this is, if we can acknowledge that, hey, we're resisting, like let's drop into allowing what is our current season, what is our experience. And then through that, connect with those critical practices. It can position ourselves so that we're ready to move through this season and into the next. And that's kind of how I kind of visualize it. So again, for me in that situation that I was in, I was so wanting this experience to where I so wanted to get this business going and all these things. And I personally was in a winter fall season and I was forcing a spring. I was trying to make it happen. And that doesn't mean that the circumstances themselves, me being pregnant and all those things, those were specific to my situation. Somebody else in the same exact circumstances, 7 months pregnant, doing all the things, they could have been in a spring and made it happen. And so I think sometimes too, we get into that compare and despair situation mentality where we're kind of looking at other people. And it's like, if we can kind of just pull ourselves out and be like, I would never look outside and expect my garden to grow when there's snow on the ground. So if I'm in a personal winter, I can't expect that of myself. And I think just being able to, I think for me, leaning into something that felt so unnatural, which was me releasing the reins and allowing, but being able to connect it with something that was so undeniably natural, which is the seasons and how nature around us reacts to the seasons. It was like, oh, that makes sense. And it just allowed for that experience to happen more naturally.
Right. Absolutely. And we all experience that in some way throughout just as we grow and hormones change and we're in different phases of our life, we experience that. And using this book as a way to look back and have that resource of, okay, yep, this is what I'm experiencing. So what's the recommendation? What kind of things do I need to be embracing right now to be able to move through this season peacefully? You write about striver energy. So like the chronic push to do more, achieve more, control everything. And I think that's where we get in these situations where we're not ready to embrace the season we're in. And we're just like, I got to push through, kind of like you were just talking about. But it really relates back to that sympathetic nervous system, parasympathetic nervous system that I talk so frequently about to my patients and on this podcast, is that cortisol response of constantly being in the fight or flight mode. And it's like, you can't even see clearly when we're in that fight or flight response. Like your body is fighting. You can't even see clearly as to where should we be going. So having a resource like this, but tell me a little bit more about that striver energy, as you call it.
Yeah. So I think there's a couple things that happen here. I think one thing is just our assignment of stress, or like how we perceive stress. And I think that it's kind of just accepted. I accept the fact that I'm going to be stressed. I'm going to be hustling. I'm going to think life is chaotic. It's full. It's like, so often, like when we greet friends, it's like, hey, how are you doing? It's like your hair's on fire and you're like, I'm fine. Like like life is busy. It's chaos, but I'm all good. How are you doing? And it's like, you paint the smile on. It's all good. And like, I've had so many conversations with friends that are just, they're stressed, but they just accept it as like, that's just how life is.
Right.
And I did too for the longest time. And I also, like, there were times when, to be honest, like if I wasn't stressed, I was like, what's wrong? Like, am I not doing enough? Like, I feel like, so you get into this, and I think it's societal, unfortunately, conditioning very much for women, especially kind of as we continue to take on more things, whether it's motherhood or caregiving of elderly, parents, or just whatever it might be, or organizations. I know so many friends who maybe they don't have kids, but they are volunteering in all the things. And so it's just, we get these accumulation of responsibilities, and we set ourselves up. So environmentally, our like sympathetic fight, flight, or freeze response, we are being triggered constantly, and our systems are just being flooded and saturated in cortisol. And the thing is stress is a good thing. I know that you talk about this, like stress is a good thing. It's our survival instinct. But the problem is it's not, it was meant to be a short-term burst. Like run away from the saber-toothed tiger, get yourself to safety. It's not meant to be a chronic experience. And what's happened is environmentally, culturally, we've kind of created this situation where it is the norm for us to be in a sympathetic dominant state. And so our systems are all out of whack. And so it's like we go from this survivor energy, which is like a temporary burst, to this striver energy where we are just clawing our way through life. And like, our bodies, which then impact our mental and emotional health and our spiritual health, everything is just falling apart. And like, for me, it got to a point where my body was literally like screaming at me, like, we need to adjust here. And that's kind of where I kind of looked at things in that perspective.
And, just to connect it in our world a little bit, is so many women and men really, but especially women, like, we're in such this chronic state of fight or flight that we, like you said, don't even really feel that it's stress, right? We just feel this is a part of normal daily living, and like, yeah, I'm good. Everything's fine. Like, this is normal. And we may not recognize that our body's crashing out because we're still waking up and we're still accomplishing the task and we're still taking care of our kids and, responding to our bosses and whatever it is, but we're not sleeping through the night. We need 3 cups of coffee to get through the day. Our weight keeps creeping up 2 or 3 pounds every couple of months or, even over a year period, but it's creeping up, and we're like, okay, I haven't changed what I'm eating. I'm still exercising every day, and I can't figure out this weight issue. Now my doctor says that my cholesterol is climbing and my blood sugar is climbing, but like, I haven't changed what I'm eating. And it all comes back to this stress response.
Oh, it's crazy. So I'm glad you brought that up. So when I was kind of dealing with my own health stuff, I started seeing a functional and integrative health practitioner, a functional medicine practitioner, because I was kind of hitting my head against the wall with the conventional route for what I was experiencing in my body. And like, if asked on like how stressed do you feel? I didn't feel like triggered or stressed, but then I got all this lab work back and there were just like red flags everywhere. And so it's just kind of like, we normalize this experience of being like always on, always up, always going, that our perception of what is healthy and optimal and what is like, this is probably skirting on the edge of like unhealthy, dangerous, a warning sign. Like, we kind of just allow it because we don't even, our perception of what we should be experiencing is so off.
Right. You hit the nail on the head. Like, you went to somebody who could actually look more internally at what's going on and how this chronic stress is affecting and the striver energy, as you mentioned, really trying to push away what's actually reality and just work through what's going on. And it's having such a detrimental effect on the inside that now it's time to see, or we actually see these inflammatory markers and our cholesterol climbing because it's a sense of inflammation as opposed to us eating quote unquote bad food, and our blood sugar getting out of whack, not because we're eating sugar and carbohydrates, but because this stress response is creating that blood sugar instability. So it's so important to dig deeper and figure out like what internally is going on. But it comes back down to, we have to accept the season of life and really embrace it and figure out, do we need therapy? Do we need more of a psychological component? Do we need more of the right amino acids in our body? And most definitely coming back to the seasonal syncing and utilizing this type of book to guide us through this life.
Yeah.
Sure. So, Amber, this has been so great. We are going to wrap up for part 1 of this amazing podcast, talking with Amberlynn Richardson on her book, Seasonal Syncing. This is a book that she has out on Amazon. It is now available to you. We are going to link the link, the ordering link. We're going to link it in the show notes so that you guys can go online and buy this Seasonal Syncing book by Amberlynn Richardson and really embrace it and utilize it as a tool, as a guide to work through these seasons of life that we're going through. We are coming back next week for part 2 of this podcast. So please tune in. Make sure you share this episode with someone that you may know or think is going through a difficult time, or even if they're not telling you they're going through a difficult time, but you just see that they have so much on their plate. This can be really helpful for them. So, Amber, thank you so much. And we'll talk back next week.
All right. I look forward to it.
Absolutely. Ciao for now. Stop.